welcome to the War 40k Imperial Guard Tactics video. Now before we get into today's video, I would like to say a big thank you to Alan Kerry for sending in these awesome pictures of his Talan and Praetorian infantry and armoured forces. Look absolutely fantastic, classic brigade here with all the trimmings. You've got your heavy support with lots of Lehman Russes, couple of battle cannon boys and a cheeky demolisher cannon. I see if those battle cannons are the old style ones. Absolutely love those sort of boxy turrets. Absolutely just love them. Basilisks and sentinels. It's all good. And then the cadre of characters at the front with the officers and the tech priests. Great. I just love everything about this army. It looks absolutely fantastic. So, and of course, how could I forget centerpiece model, the Baneblade at the back. Absolutely love Baneblades. I need to get mine back out on the field. I know they die, I know they're rubbish, but it's a goddamn Baneblade. Gotta feature it. Yeah, it cost me 3 CP to bring it, I don't care. It's a Baneblade. I got 3 of the bloody things gathering dust on my shelves. Anyway, thank you for sending these pictures, Alan. They look absolutely fantastic. If anyone else has got any cool pictures they want me to use in my videos, please post them on my Facebook page. There will be a link down in the description below. Now, today's video, guys, is going to be all about foot veterans. Okay, now veteran squads in general are ones that aren't particularly favoured by guard players at the moment. A lot of people tend to feel like they should be back in the troop slot and all this kind of stuff. And I'm here to actually say that I think foot veterans are absolutely fantastic. And I have used them in many battle reports across 8th and going into 9th now, and my foot veterans have never disappointed me. I just think a lot of people have a bit of a misconception of how to run them. And some people think they should be as good as Scions, which in some ways they're better than Scions, in some ways they're worse than Scions. So for those of you that aren't quite sure what veterans are, maybe you're a new Imperial Guard player, they are basically a slightly better version of a regular infantry squad. They have exactly the same stats as an infantry squad, but they have ballistic skill 3+, which means they're really good for delivering some hard-hitting firepower. They can also take a lot of special weapons, and they can take a lot of weapons. So your sergeant can be equipped with the usual sergeant weapons of either like a bolter or a plasma pistol or a power sword. But then instead of just one man being able to take a special weapon, 3 veterans can take special weapons. You can still take a heavy weapon on top of that. And on top of that, you can take a heavy flamer. So you can really load these guys up. Now the problem is that sometimes it's a little tempting to load them up. And what you have to remember at the end of the day, guys, is that veterans are just toughness 3, 5+ save guys. And the best way to run them is, well, there's kind of like 2 ways you can run them, but the best 2 ways you can run them is either just as essentially a 1-point upgrade to an infantry squad. I mean, if you're taking, 6 infantry squads and you're not too worried about objectives secured, why not upgrade 3 of them to veterans? 30 points. That's one way. That's one way you can look at it. How I like to, what I also mean by sort of just running them as regular infantry squads that are a bit better is, don't worry about their survivability. Regular guard infantry is there to die. Everyone knows that. But as long as it can achieve something whilst it's being blown apart, you're having a great time. Veterans are very similar to that. Okay, you don't necessarily need, especially foot veterans, you don't necessarily need them to be this one-hit, amazing, wonderful unit. And if they die, your whole battle plan shouldn't be revolving around that these guys are going to live to the end of the game. If they do, great. But if they don't, it's not the end of the world. The thing about veterans is they are cheap, they bring a lot of firepower to the table, and they can get in, get a job done, and then they can die. And that's fine. But they're cheap enough that if they don't get the job done, it's not the end of the world. So that's the good way of looking at veterans. Traditionally, people have run them in chimeras, and that's allowed them to get lots of. Traditionally, people ran them in chimeras because they could shoot their special weapons out of the chimera. They can't do that anymore, and between that and losing the OBSEC and being troops, a lot of people have just written them off. But like I said, that's not really the way to use them anymore. Now, I used foot veterans all the way through 8th and had great success with them. In 9th, I'm having even more success with them. Okay? For a couple of factors. Firstly, the special weapon of choice, the plasma gun, has had a slight reduction of points. It went from being 11 points down to 10 points. And the second special weapon of choice, the melter gun, went down from 14 points to 10 points. So overall, your veterans are slightly cheaper. On top of that, they only went up by 1 point themselves. And the second main point is that we now have a reliable way of getting a couple of squads of them in reserve for cheap. So previously, the only way to get veterans in reserve to protect them was to use the Dagger of Tusaka, the relic. And it's a good relic, but you can only use it on one squad and one officer. And that didn't really cut the mustard. You know, one squad of veterans could come in and do some damage, but this is the Imperial Guard. There is very rarely a situation, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but there's very rarely a situation where one squad can come in and achieve its objective. You often need to double up or triple up. There's an old saying amongst Longbeard Guard players, which is you need to bring 3 of everything, because the first unit will fail, the second unit will die, and the third unit will get the job done. That is, it remains true to this day. So whilst you could, protect one unit of veterans back in 8th, one unit wasn't really enough. So the other option you used to have was sort of run them as actual foot veterans and just give them some grenade launchers, some mortar cannons, and hope they'd be a low priority. And that often did work, and that's still a totally valid tactic. But in 9th edition, the sort of what I have found to be the new hotness when it comes to running veterans is to take 2 squads of them, and to be honest, a command squad and an astropath. But like I said, there's always you can stack loads of points up here. But we'll focus on the veterans. The way to run it is you take 2 squads of veterans and a junior officer or company commander, an officer, and you give the officer the Dagger of Tusaka, and he outflanks one of the veteran squads, and then you spend 1 command point to put the other squad in strategic reserve. Now you can put up to 9, because the veterans are only 5 power level. Now you can put more stuff in strategic reserve if you want to. Like I sort of hinted at, you could spend CP to put a command squad in reserve as well for some more veteran plasma. Great. And you could put an astropath in there to help them ignore cover. Very useful against Marines in cover. So, but the point is that thanks to strategic reserves, you have a great way of taking advantage of your veterans. And in a recent battle report that I did this weekend, I was able to show that tactic off, where I brought in I kept my hard hitters off the board turn 1, but I had enough other infantry to hold the line, and then my veterans came in and just they did a really, really good job. Veterans cleaned up over the course of the game, probably sort of 10, 15 Dark Elder jet bikes and a load of other stuff. Like they did a really good job. So that's the key to making veterans work. Now I also am a big fan of, if you're running foot veterans, to take the custom trait that lets you get an 18-inch rapid fire, because you really want to be running them with plasma guns. Because when you think about it, 2 veteran squads with plasma, and you put a plasma pistol on the sergeant, you're looking at 14 plasma shots, and they're all going to be able to reroll 1s to hit. And now that another factor in the feather in the cap of the veteran, should we say, a factor in their favour, is they won't overcharge and kill themselves on anything other than a 1 now. Plasma overheat has been changed to unmodified rolls of 1, which is so good. So even if people stack negative to hit modifiers on them, at least they won't be blowing up and killing themselves anymore. So foot plasma veterans in reserve, I think they're really good. as always, guys, I always say there's like a gold, silver, and bronze level. You could just take your 2 squads and your junior officer. You could start putting an astropath in there to ignore cover. You could start putting a command squad. You still got a power level left over for something else. You could really load up on units you want to outflank with, but just the bronze level of doing this is just 2 squads, 1 CP, and a junior officer, and that gets you 14 plasma shots just into a flank. Now, one other thing I want to mention about veterans, which I think is a really nice stratagem for them, and it's in the greater good, and it's called Experienced Eye. It's 1 command point. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase when an Astra Militarum veterans unit from your army is chosen to shoot with. Until the end of that phase, when resolving an attack made with a weapon by a model in that unit, improve the armor penetration characteristic of that weapon by 1 for that attack. E.g. AP E.G. AP0 becomes AP-1. Now that's really good. I really like that because it basically gives you AP-4 plasma. It gives you, but most importantly, gives you AP-1 las guns. Now, some of you will be like, why is that such a big deal? If I could have AP-1 las guns across my whole army as a custom regiment trait, I'd never pick anything else. Okay, I can tell you from experience using my Gene Stealer cult and using their cult trait armor piercing ammunition, which gives you an AP-1 when you're in half range on your auto guns, that it's amazing. Now it's only if you're taking lots of plasma, you're only looking at like sort of 12 lasgun shots that it's going to affect, but don't forget it's still affecting the plasma. But you could there's different ways you can lean into this. What if you just took a bare bones veteran squad and you gave them an 18-inch rapid fire, you put them near an astropath, and you get them reroll 1. You take amongst your army you take Yarriks. I'm starting to think Yarriks a really big one. I'm going to really start thinking about trying to find a way to include Yarrick in my army. You fire all your veterans off. That's 36 shots hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s to Yarrick. You give them reroll 1s to wound as well. Probably wounding on 5s, rerolling 1s. You've got an astropath nearby, so they're going to be ignoring cover, and they're AP-1. That's really good, and it's really good because that way you've got 36 lasgun shots hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, wounding on 4s, 3s or 4s, 4s or 5s, rerolling 1s, and they're AP-1, ignoring cover. Now that's going to plink off a wound or 2, and that's only 60 points for the veteran squad. 60 points for 1 CP. I mean, you're going to get 36 hit. You're going to get 36 shots, 24 hits. Reroll. You should get a few 1s. So let's say with your rerolling 1s, you get up to about, let's say, 27 wounds roughly. Then you wound on 5s, which will be 9 wounds. Rerolling 1s. So let's say you get to about 12 wounds. The enemy has got a 4-up save. Let's say it's a Marine. Well, that's 6 wounds that are going to go through, aren't they? That's 3 dead intercessors. That's 2 dead of the new heavy intercessors. Either way you stack that up, the new heavy intercessors are going to be about 30 points a model. Regular intercessors are about 20 points a model. Either way, a bunch of lasguns have just got the points back in 1 turn for basically 1 CP. So there are multiple ways of running foot veterans now, and they're good. They're a good unit. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, that lasgun way of running them, it's not necessarily the way I would recommend to run them. It can be done, but it's not the way I would necessarily recommend it. What I would say is that the best way I have found to run foot veterans so far is reserves, strategic reserves, Dagger of Chusaka, company commander, bring them in, turn 2, take advantage of having an 18-inch rapid fire if you take the right regiment trait, and just blast into the enemy. I found it as a really effective counter-attack unit, because remember guys, you're going to be just fighting over the middle of the board. You're never really going to be pushing past that, because that's where you win 9th edition, by sticking to the middle of the board basically. Anyway guys, hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have any thoughts, please let me know down in the comment section below. How have you been using your foot veterans, or in veterans in general? Have you had success? Do you think they're worth it? Do you think they're just a pile of crap and Mordian Glory doesn't know what the hell he's talking about? Please let me know down in the comment section below. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and of course, I'll see you guys next time.